Welcome back to the Just Fantasy Baseball podcast. My name is Rami Lavi. Vince D'Amato is off enjoying a bachelor party somewhere this weekend, so he will not be joining us today. So you got me for the next few minutes to give you all the fantasy news as the games have just gotten going on Sunday here across the league. It's just after 1 p.m. Eastern time as I'm recording this. Remember those? I'm already off on my tangents, but remember those 11 a.m. Peacock games last year? I actually loved them. I worked for Major League Baseball last summer, and I would often work those games, and it was so much fun because I would just be in like a empty, like entire studio. The game would be on, and I'd be working on that game, and no one else was there because no other game started. And then by the time that game was over, people were showing up, but I was done. No, it was pretty fun. So I enjoyed those games. I enjoyed the 11 o'clock baseball game. I would say bring them back. Like baseball's made for it. Football, like I still haven't gotten into the 9 a.m. football thing, but for baseball, I find it works perfectly to have like an early morning game. So also when I do these solo shows, I can't stop staring at myself. It's like a fatal flaw that I have. So if I'm like adjusting how I look, it's because I'm staring at myself and talking to myself. Anyway, on today's episode, we're going to be doing the usual, what we do this weekend. We're getting you set for the week of fantasy baseball by telling you some headlines, who to pick up on the waivers, some pitchers you can stream this week. So as you're listening to this on a Monday, we got you covered for everything you need to know for this week in fantasy baseball on a Monday. And it's I think it's like week 13 or 14 of the fantasy baseball season, which is crazy already. As we're heading, now is the time to start jockeying for position. Now's the time to make your run, make your push. And sometimes that means getting guys off waivers. Sometimes that means making trades. So there's a lot of stuff we'll discuss with Vince later this week. But for now, lock in on those waivers. Monday is waiver day. Monday is planning out your week. If you're in one of those leagues where you set your lineup once a week, it's usually on a Monday and then your roster's locked. So today is the day. Figure out who's starting for you, streamers and all that. But before we get into any of that, we have the headlines because there are a lot of injuries and I want to run through them real quick. So if you'll just give me a moment here as I pull them up. The injuries. Number one, I don't know if Vince talked about this on last show, but the catcher position, which was, shallow to start with, which was thinning out to start with, has gotten thinner as JT Realmuto, one of the more reliable, better catchers in the league, is now on the IL with a knee injury, and knees can always be tough. And apparently he's undergoing meniscus surgery, so who knows how long he's going to be out for. He could be out for the year, I guess. So just a tough break. If you had JT Realmuto, tough break for the Phillies. I'm not sure what the long-term prognosis is for him, but that's a tough one. Another injury that we have here is Javi Baez. Had spine inflammation. Now, he's probably not on your fantasy team, but he's someone we talked about on this show, so I did want to talk about him. Speaking of guys we talked about on this show, Jose Abreu, and I think this should have been done a while ago. No matter the money, this is your franchise that's trying to win, and right now they're not winning, and they've been a winning franchise for so long. Jose Abreu was cut by the Astros. He was optioned to AAA. And he's still owed over $30 million. They released him essentially. He could go to AAA if he wants. I don't know if he's going to go, but this is a guy who, we might see this with Anthony Rizzo. I know he's hit pretty well in Boston the last couple of days since essentially being benched for 2 games with the Yankees. So we'll see what ends up happening with Anthony Rizzo. But here's another guy in Jose Abreu who's a superstar and was signed to be a star in Houston, and he's just not been working out. And there's other guys I know we've talked about a lot about Joey Loperfido and other guys who, deserve a chance, deserve an opportunity to be playing every day. And Jose Abreu's absence will give them a chance. And I think it'll ultimately, honestly, make the Astros a better team. As much as that sucks, that contract never worked out. They signed a big free agent deal. It didn't work out. Sometimes that happens. And I like, as much as I don't love seeing guys, go out like this, I like when the team is competitive enough to bite the bullet and eat the money and say, hey, we got to move on. This is not working right now. Let's try and figure out something else and see what we can do. And so that's a very competitive spirit to have. And I appreciate that from the Houston Astros. Another story that's not, I guess, fantasy related, but Pat Hoberg is going to be disciplined for violating MLB rules. And the reason why that's interesting is this is a guy who's been one of the best umpires in baseball, literally the best, like perfect score umpire in baseball. And that doesn't happen often. And the reason why it's so notable that he's now going to be I guess, suspended or whatever it is, whatever may happen to him, is if there's any umpire that you'd go to try and manipulate scores, that you'd go to try and, if you were a gambling company, if you were a bookie, try and fix games, it would be the best umpire in the league, the guy who literally called a perfect game in the World Series in 2022, a guy who's literally sees the strike zone better than anyone else in baseball. That would be the guy I would go to if he's the best umpire to try and fix things, because just a little bit off here and there, which now he's normal, now he's regular, now he's not perfect anymore. No one would suspect it. But this is a guy who knows it perfectly, and if he could see it perfectly, he can manipulate it better than anyone, in my opinion. So that's just interesting story to look out for. Yoshinobu Yamamoto is just the latest pitcher to leave with this. They're calling tricep tightness after just 2 innings on Saturday, so that's tough. Another injury, and to wrap up, there's 2 more injuries as Kyle Bradish is going back on the 15-day IL with a right UCL sprain, and that sucks. Who knows what that means for his season? This is a guy who battled back from injury and actually was having a really good year since coming back, and his season could be over now. And another guy, an older guy, Justin Verlander, was scratched from the start with neck discomfort. And Kyle Harrison today sprained his ankle, a weird one. It seems like he sprained it during a bullpen session. He was supposed to pitch, or I'm not sure how he sprained it. I actually don't know. He was supposed to pitch today for San Francisco, and then he gets hurt against, he's supposed to pitch against the Angels, 4 o'clock game today, and an ankle sprain. We don't know how this came about as of yet. So, and he's not going to be making his start. So that kind of sucks. An interesting story that's come out with Kevin Gausman. I have Kevin Gausman in a couple of leagues, and if you're in a win league, you might be struggling and wondering what the hell's going on with Kevin Gausman. He's like, well, and this is the pressure he's pitching under, and just kind of tells you how bad it's been offensively for the Blue Jays. He said, if I don't pitch well, we lose. And that's how bad the offense has been. We talked about so many different guys that we've talked about on the Blue Jays struggling, and he's not mincing any words there. Kevin Gausman telling you that essentially, yeah, we need to pitch really well in order for us to win because the offense ain't giving us shit. So that's a tough way. And speaking of the Blue Jays offense not giving them shit, they just, they just DFA Daniel Vogelback. So not a guy that maybe you would have had on your fantasy team, but definitely they are searching. Other headlines around the league: Zach Wheeler and Corbin Burns are facing each other again. Both guys with ERAs at 2.08 and 2.16, 2 of the best pitchers in their respective league. Definitely leading the pack in Cy Young Award voting right now. If you would think about it, Wheeler and Burns. Obviously, Burns now in the American League, probably the 2 favorites. Joey Ortiz, who I know Vinny likes to talk about a lot, is actually leading all qualified rookies with an 853 OPS, which is crazy. This guy has been so good. Meanwhile, the Mets obviously are trying to win, I think now their 5th straight. So the Mets, don't look now. They're only 2 games out of wild card spot. This is why I keep telling you they're getting a little hot. Let's get to some of the waiver wire pickups for this week. And I went deep into the waiver wires this week, actually, just for one of them. But a couple of deep plays here. Number 1, I picked up, if you're struggling at the catcher position, and again, we talked about all the injuries, and I looked at Yankee catcher Jose Trevino, who's playing well and his numbers are good, but I just don't think he plays enough to justify a roster spot. I really don't. Like, his numbers look good, and I saw people are starting to pick him up, but the Yankees, they've really gone to like a 50-50 split between him and Tyler Wells. And so it doesn't make sense for me, if even as well as he's playing, if he's not going to get more, if it's not going to equal more playing time for him, then it doesn't make sense to pick him up. Like, I think he has 24 at bats in the last 2 weeks. That's just not enough for you at the catcher position. But here's a guy who in the last week has 22 at bats and he's catcher eligible, and he's from the Oakland Athletics. Tyler Soderstrom, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's 7 for his last 22. 3 of those 7 are home runs, 6 RBIs, 5 runs scored, 400 on base. That's just in the last week alone. So he's rostered now in 22% of Yahoo leagues, but that's up 21% in the last week. So he's obviously taken a massive jump, and that's somebody who could be helping you out on your fantasy team. Another guy who's been hot of late and starting to get rostered again. We talked about him as a major disappointment earlier this year, but hey, guys go up and down. And if he, the rest of the year, is going to have a good season, why not jump on Jake Berger, see what you can get out of him. He's been hot of late. I know that offense stinks in Miami. We'll see if you can ride him a little bit. Like, put it this way, he has 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, and 3 runs scored. So only 1 RBI and run outside of those 2 homers. So that kind of sucks, but a 417 on base. for a waiver wire pickup, just taking a flyer on a guy and ride him while he's hot, and then you could cut him a week later. Sure, why not pick him up? And then the other one that I had was Jared Kelenic, who finally does seem to be heating up a little bit. I ultimately did cut him for roster space. I might pick him up again. I think, I still believe that he's the answer in the outfield for them, that he's going to be getting the playing time. No one has taken a hold of that. And he's still only 20% rostered in Yahoo leagues because of that, because no one's taken a hold of that last outfield spot. But today, I think he hit a home run already today. Yeah, he did. He hit a home run today. So that's his third home run in the last week. He has a stolen base. He has 6 RBIs, 4 runs scored, and a 4 something on base percentage. So Jared Kelenic has been, and I might, I might take a flyer on him myself if I have someone to drop. I'm going to look right now. But yeah, Jared Kelenic has been awesome. So that's definitely someone you'd want to look at to pick up in all of your leagues, because I think he's definitely someone who is going to ultimately earn that role. So Jared Kelenic, good guy to look at, I think. And now everyone on my league who's listening to this can go pick them up, because his game already started, so I can't pick him up yet. But yeah, Jared Kelenic is someone I would look at for help if you're looking on the waiver wires. I like him a lot. So those are the waiver wires. The pitchers to stream this week, as we always give you, the pitchers who you can stream and get good value streaming for. Number 1, I have Carlos Rodriguez. And again, these are deep polls. Carlos Rodriguez is rostered in 2% of leagues. He was called up by the Milwaukee Brewers because they're dealing with so many injuries, as everyone is in the pitching staff. And that's like kind of the interesting thing. When I went through all those injuries at the top, it's interesting to note that other guys are coming up and still pitching well. Like, I still think the balls are flying out more now that it's summer and it's hot outside. And so maybe that's something to play into, but we'll see how that happens later in the season. But the next couple of months, as we hit, closer to July and August, I think the balls and the offense should pick up a little bit. So maybe these random pitchers that you're getting off waivers that have been giving you good, solid work are not going to be as valuable anymore. But to me, Carlos Rodriguez is a guy that you can call him up this week, and he'll pitch well for you against LA. And then if he pitches well against the Angels, and again, that's the Angels, I wouldn't be starting him against the Dodgers. But if he pitches well against the Angels, I'd consider starting him later this week again against the Padres. But we'll see. Let's start with just start him against the Angels, see how that goes. But I like that for him. Another guy who's also rostered in 1% of leagues is Roddery Munoz, who his last start, 6 scoreless innings with 5 strikeouts for the Miami Marlins, and he's making the start against St. Louis. Also not a great offense, so I like that too. And just to give you 2 more, Cade Povich, I think it's his 3rd career start that he's making against the Yankees on Wednesday. I actually like him. I love guys who the Yankees haven't seen before going against the Yankees. His first start wasn't great, but his second start, 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, no runs. He was awesome in his second career start. So Cade Povich going against the Yankees this week, I actually like that on Wednesday. It's a little bit of a long shot. Like, don't be shocked if that doesn't backfire, but hey, no risk it, no biscuit, right? Risk, reward. Try and risk that one. Take him, Cade Povich, see what happens. I think he's going to have a good start against the Yankees. Again, I'm a Yankee fan, and it feels like sometimes I'm a little bit biased against the Yankees because I am a Yankee fan, but I think Cade Povich will have a good start for you. So he's someone I definitely like in that spot. And then Kyle Hendricks is back in the rotation for the Cubs this week against the San Francisco Giants. And he's another guy who has pitched a little bit better since going to the bullpen and coming back. Maybe he figured something out. We know this guy has been a professional pitcher at points in his career. He's been really good. So I wouldn't mind starting Kyle Hendricks this week. I would think that's a pretty good spot for you against the San Francisco team. It's not a great offense by any stretch. And I think you can start Kyle Hendricks this week and see where it goes from there. Maybe he's even one of those players who's like, wow, he's back in the rotation. Maybe he found something in the bullpen and now he can implement it and be the great professional pitcher he's been for the majority of his career. And he's barely rostered in any leagues. Maybe you get a steal here at this point in the season where this is a starter that carries you the rest of the way, especially like I said, where I think starting pitching, he's going to start to drop, just to have a little bit of a fall off where offense is going to pick up, in my opinion. Time for my favorite segment, and I wish Vince was here for this, my MVP of the week. And again, I am so excited for this one. It's Starling Marte. You could have gone with JD Martinez. You could have gone with Jackson Merrill. You could have gone with anyone from that series between the Padres and the Mets. But how about Starling Marte? And if you're not paying attention, in the last 2 weeks, has a 500 on base over the last 2 weeks, 5 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a home run, but he's got 3 stolen bases. He's now the active leader in Major League Baseball in stolen bases. I think he has 350 stolen bases in his career. I'm pretty sure he's 13 for 13 this season in stolen bases, or 12 for 12 in stolen bases this season. So again, when I predicted that this guy, if he's healthy, will have a great year, look at his year overall. Now, 337 is not the greatest on base, but the production, he has 35 runs scored in a Mets offense that doesn't score a ton of runs, but starting to pick it up now that Lindor's hitting. Martinez is back and healthy and hitting. Maybe Alonso picks it up. We could start to see him pick up the production numbers. Only 28 RBIs, 35 runs scored, but he has 7 home runs. He's got the 12 stolen bases and 500 over the last 2 weeks, 467 on base over the last week, and over the last month, a 417 on base. And if you just look at the numbers the last month, 3 home runs, 13 RBIs, 14 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, and a 417 on base. Like, Starling Marte has been one of the better fantasy players over the course of the last month. And, he's actually ranked 60th over the last month. And he's my MVP of the week. He's still available in some leagues, 77% rostered. And if he's a fringe guy in your league, I definitely start him this week. He's not my lock of the week, though, because someone I've just mentioned is my lock of the week. And my lock of the week is Jackson Merrill, who's a shortstop / outfielder, has been moving around. He's been rostered only in 65% of Yahoo leagues, but an additional 15% of Yahoo leagues over the last week because he has 4 home runs in his last 3 games. I'm not saying this is a guy that's going to be hot forever, but ride him while he's hot. That's what I would tell you to do. And if he's hot now, plug him into your lineup this week, and then we'll see what happens after that. We know he plays the Angels at the end of the week. Not a great team. I think that's who he plays at the end of the week. Let me double check that for you. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. No, sorry. He plays against Milwaukee the end of the week. So not world beaters with a lot of injuries on the pitching staff. So again, we'll see what happens for Jackson Merrill. But I would definitely start him while he's hot. That's my play for this week, Jackson Merrill. So until next time, but I would also keep riding Starling Marte if you have the option. Until next time, like, subscribe, share the podcast. I appreciate you all for listening. Appreciate everyone who helps out on the show. We'll be back, I guess, Wednesday or Thursday with Vince and I both together. Until then, again, good luck with all your fantasy needs and all your fantasy help. If you have any questions, please DM them to us or send them to the Twitter account or Instagram, YouTube, wherever, so that we can share that with you guys and answer your questions on next episode. Till then, see ya. Peace.